Yo, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. I'm joined by Isaac. He's here. His @ is in the description down below. Isaac, how you doing, mate?
Yes, Dan, what's happening, my friend? Thanks for having me on the channel. Very much looking forward to this one. I know it's one we've been chatting about for a while now. Well, all season, actually, we could probably say. But it's there's probably going to be some brutal decisions, mate, but I'm not going to spoil any surprises.
Yeah, so me and Isaac have been chatting for a while now that we want to do a video where we sort of decide who should stay at Chelsea, who's done enough to warrant keeping their place in the team, who's got to go. And if we can't really decide, then we might feel like a loan move's best for them. I'll be honest with you, right? I've had a look through and the list is a bit of a joke. There's 36 players on the list, and then there's about 10 youth players who I barely even know, to be honest with you. So I'm probably not going to touch them, but there's still about 30 odd players to get through, which kind of just shows the situation Chelsea are in and how difficult it's been for Poch to try and work out who his best team is with all these different players sort of available to him. What do you think? Do you think Chelsea really need to have a proper cull of the team and get rid of quite a few players, or are you sort of happy with it how it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Poch should obviously see the players a lot more than we do because he'll still see them in training and in their recovery and all the rest of it. Now, we hear a player goes injured for 6 months. We don't hear, see, or nothing about them until they come back, and then that's how we assess them. I feel like there's going to be some in here where could be questionable, but like you said, we can only go off the base of what we see. But I think you're right. I think it does emphasise how much of a challenging job it is. We can only start 11 players every week. Look, the final push for European football as well is going to increase how many games we've got next season, hopefully, which could again change a few of the answers. Because if you're going to be talking about backup players or squad players, obviously we got to think where they're going to come into the mix. But no, I completely agree, mate. I think it is a tough job. I think a lot of the newer signings as well haven't really had much of a chance to show what they're about yet. We've seen some decent performances recently from the likes of Nkunku. Mudryk stepped up, I think, a little bit. There's been some better performances when some players missing. I think you and I both said multiple times how much we've noticed Casado more since Enzo's been out the team. So it's a tough one, and this is just us picking who we like and who we don't like. So from a manager's point of view, I can't imagine how difficult it must be for him.
Yeah, I think you're bang on, mate. I think you're right about a lot of the new players because so many of them seem like they've been injured for such a long period of time. I'd take Lavia, for example. He's barely played, and Madueke's come out today saying that he wants to see more of him. And Kunku looks so good against Brighton, but we didn't get to see much of him for most of the season. I think we've been lucky enough to see the likes of Casado play nearly every game, and he's obviously got better towards the end, which kind of shows how long does it take you to really get sort of gelled into a new team and things like that. So I think Poch has really had his work cut out in that sense, and that's one area that I'm happy to sort of give him a bit of patience, give him a bit of time, because I think it's a tough job getting everyone to work together, learning loads of new personalities. It's pretty much, I looked at the squad, yeah, it's pretty much a whole new Chelsea team compared to like even last season, which is crazy. And we're all well aware of that. But actually, when I just sort of see them all there in front of me, it's kind of crazy. So
Yeah,
look, we'll
I
get
think
into
it's odd
it.
when we see the clips from what feels to us only like a couple of years ago. But when you look at the team, you're like, they're not there anymore. They're not there anymore. They're not there anymore. They're not there anymore. And this is, we're talking in the last 18 to 24 months.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the team and the club is so drastically different, which is what we've been trying to sort of take in and remind ourselves of all season. But obviously it's just been a bit all over the place, right? But let's have a look at it. We'll get into it. I'll bring it up because I've got a tier list and we're going to run through all the players. It's right there. So if you're in the comments, make sure to let us know who you think should be leaving, who you think should be staying. If you don't agree with us, make sure to definitely tell us as well, because we want to know these things. We want to see where people are at. And if you haven't already, make sure to smash a like on the video. If we could get 20 likes on this, I think that'd be really good. That's kind of where we're at the moment with most videos getting about 20. So that's going to be the target. And if you're watching it afterwards, make sure to like it before you've even started watching. And subscribe if you haven't already, because I am this close, right? This close, as close as Chelsea were to beating Liverpool in that league to 2,500 subscribers. So let's jump into it without further ado. Bear with me 2 secs whilst I just load it up. Here we go. Right. So the tier list is right there in front of our eyes. We got keep, loan, or sell. Very self-explanatory. We're going to start off. As you can see, right, there is so many players there. Realistically, probably don't even need the bottom row. I don't know if I can do anything about that. I'm not sure. Okay, so first up on the list, a player that sort of left in January, but is definitely not going to be staying where he's at, is Broja. Now, we all saw Broja as a potential a few years ago, and now he's not really done a lot. And he's gone to Fulham, and he's not really done a lot. And he got us 4 million in a loan fee, but he's probably not Prem standard, in my opinion. Definitely not at the top end, and definitely not worth, definitely not what Chelsea are looking for, right? So, what do you think, guys? What are you sort of thinking with Broja?
For me, mate, it's clear cut for Broja. I think it's another. I can't say yet that he goes at the club because he's not had much of a chance to show us. I also think his value right now has plummeted because he's been sat on a bench for the last 6 months and not even been able to get into the team. It's got to be another loan deal for me. I think that has to, because what that does is it buys you some time that if we think, yeah, this guy ain't coming back, it might just bump his value up a little bit. There's 3 teams that are coming up to the league this season. I'm sure all 3 of them would be pretty keen. You'd look at someone like Leicester, Vardy, how much longer is he going to keep going? I know they've got a few other decent players that kind of replace Vardy, but I think for one of those teams coming up, it could be a great loan deal for them. And I think what it does is it helps us out when it comes to selling them later on, if that happens. Or we see a different side to him, and who knows, maybe he comes back to the squad.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up most of the loan deals, to be honest, doesn't it? Like, we're not really trying to get rid of a player, but it's sort of, if we can't get a good fee for him, we might try and hold on for him and let him sort of do something. So what do you think with him? Do you reckon we loan him or do you reckon we sell him? Because we definitely don't want to see him sort of sticking around the first team, do we?
No, and then I guess there's the question of, do you loan players with the expectation to bring them back, or do you loan players to bump up their price, or what? For me, I think it's too soon to sell him. I would go for the loan.
Cool.
I'd look for another club who are looking for a striker where he's going to be playing. We know he's prone to injuries as well, so if he goes out to another club and there's an injury issue, then he goes.
Yeah, I hear that because obviously we don't need to spend too much time on him, but we all know there's a player in there, but we just haven't even got a chance to see it at Fulham. We saw more of him in a Chelsea shirt this season than we did at Fulham, where arguably he could have played more. Next one up, kind of in a similar sort of boat, but has played more recently towards the end of the season, is Alfie Gilchrist. What are we saying with him?
My concern with Alf is that when RJ and Mallow are back, does he even get a look in?
Yeah, right. Okay, I hear you on that. You mean at right back, yeah?
Yeah,
I think it's
so.
tough to get in, isn't it?
And
I agree.
And there's times where we've seen recently where RJ and Mallow are in the team. So it's like, I know we're going to have more fixtures next season, and I rate him as a player. I don't want him to stop playing. I just don't know how many opportunities he's going to get next year, given that hopefully, our right back position won't be as drastic as it has been at times this season. But I'll give credit where it's due, mate. I think when he's come in, he's stepped up, to be fair.
Yeah, I feel like he's got a really good attitude, doesn't he? He's definitely the type of player that I would want sort of coming through the academy and sticking around Chelsea in that sense. I'm just not sold on his footballing ability as well. I think it's too soon to sell him as well. I don't know. What do you think? A loan deal for him? Would it be good if he went somewhere and played some football more consistently?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think that's got to be the safest one, isn't it? I think this season has given him an opportunity where the club now go, nice, you've stepped up when needed to, but we want you to get even better. Off you go. Have a season somewhere else, and when you're ready, we'll bring you back.
Yeah, I hear that, definitely. Coming up next, we've got, that looks like Kepa. Wow, I think I know where to drag him. Obviously, Kepa's coming back to Chelsea after a sort of failed loan spell at Real Madrid. To be honest, mate, I don't see him having a future at Chelsea. I absolutely don't. So I think we could probably both settle on selling him. Would you agree? Or do you think he's better than what we've got in goal and we should give him one more chance?
That's got to be the question, isn't it? Is he better than what we have right now? I'm not saying that Petrovic is amazing, but I think in Petrovic this season has convinced me more in what he didn't even play a full season because we were playing Sanchez at the start. So he's convinced me more in the amount he's been in than like the 2 or 3 years that Kepa was at the club. So for me, it's got to be sell. Time's up, my friend.
Mate, I'm going
Because
to hit
otherwise,
you with a stat.
how long do
Go
you
on.
keep these players on the books for, man?
Right, so Kepa's actually been at Chelsea since 2018. So it's quite a long time, isn't it? I think you're bang on that he really, in that time, how often has he impressed? He's played 109 games. I think the fact that he's gone to Real Madrid and only played 13 when Courtois been injured all season, it just kind of shows, doesn't it? He ended up going over to Real Madrid and becoming their third choice when they barely even had a second at the time. So I agree. I think we sell him. Oh, there's rumours that he could potentially go back home to Athletic Bilbao, which would kind of make sense for me because it's just not really worked. He obviously played the most games in his career at Chelsea, but I think
Yeah.
Petrovic is kind of a fresh start, isn't it? So I'm just
Yeah,
trying
it
to
is, and it
look.
fits in with the mood of the club at the minute as well. I think I just want to make it clear I'm not going to throw hate on Kepa because I think that he's done some decent things at the club, but I do think time's up, mate. Because it's just like you said, you can't be third choice keeper at Real Madrid and then expect to come back when Petrovic has been unbelievable. Oh, shout out the women's Chelsea team, by the way, champions. Just come through on my
Oh,
notification on my
yeah,
phone.
they've won, have they?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
man.
was getting a little bit close there. So fair play to Emma Hayes, to be fair, because she's obviously leaving as well. Another person that's been around Chelsea for so long is obviously departing. So, yeah, it's not just the men's side that are being absolutely ripped apart at the moment. Now,
Yeah.
next up, we've got Dazassi. Now, Dazassi obviously only just come in, and I think at times this season has been brilliant for us, and at other times has been played out of position. And then there's been a few games where he's been absolutely woeful. And now with the emergence of maybe Trevor Chalobah coming back into the side, people are sort of questioning where Dazassi fits into this team. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I think he has had up and down periods. You have to cut him slack when he's been played out of position. I think even when he's been in his position, there are still some doubts for me, but he's still young and he's also, there's been times where he's been unbelievable, mate, and I see a lot of potential. With the fixtures that we're hopefully going to have next season, he's got to stay around the club. I think, let's not forget that Thiago's on his way out. Um, for me, he's got to stay, mate. He's done enough and been good enough and shown what being Chelsea is all about enough to warrant keeping his place in this team, regardless of whether that's a starting position every week. I don't care, but he should stay in and around this club, I think, for next season.
I completely agree. I think Dazassi's kind of shown that at this point for Chelsea Football Club, how vital it is to have like a winner in the side just throughout the season, I think, because there's been moments when we've really needed a player like that to come in, not bother about where he's playing, just be absolutely content with playing for the team, no matter where he plays, and absolutely fine.
Yeah,
I think back to that Man City game away at the Etihad. He was heading and kicking everything he could get himself in front of. So I agree. I definitely don't see him going anywhere for me. So I
no,
think he's worth keeping. And I think the fee we paid for him probably suggests we'd be all right with keeping him as a squad player. Now,
yeah.
next up, we got Ben Chilwell. Now, Ben Chilwell, obviously another season hindered by injuries. When isn't with Chile, unfortunately, it seems like. Is it time that we say, look, you're not going to be fit enough to be an option for us? Or do we keep Chile, obviously a vice captain at Chelsea, and try to keep giving him a chance? What do you think?
Uh, Chile has to stay for me. He
Cool.
I hear you on the injury thing, and look, it's frustrating to say the least. But this guy is Chelsea, I think. He was in the Champions League winning team. He's one of the only players left in that era of Chelsea, albeit it was only a couple of years ago. he wants to be at this club for the rest of his career, I think, and I think his playing ability is also, when he's fit, is unbelievable as well. So I think he has to stay. I just hope that he can stop getting injured as frequently. He has to stay for me.
Do you reckon it's? I agree with you. I think Chile gets the club. I think he wants to be part of this club. He wants to have more success here. Do you think it's like give him one more year, see if he can stay fit? Because at what point do we decide that it's just sort of almost like a waste of a space for someone else that could kind of take up that role? But I think we're keeping him for this season coming, definitely.
Yeah, I actually, you make a good point, I think, actually. And I think in light of, the massive overhaul of Chelsea, he maybe do we look at him this year, and if he's still having injury issues, then like you said, it goes, sorry mate, but you can't just, you're holding up space where other players could be coming through. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
agree
think another
completely.
year
I
is
think
fair.
cool. All right, we'll settle on that. Next up, Madueke obviously had probably more, kind of had a breakthrough season last year towards the end under Lampard, I felt. But then this year started a bit slower. I don't think Poch was backing him. And then he's kind of finished strongly again. What are your thoughts with Noni? Do you think he's good enough to have that right side of the team locked down? Is that his position now? Or are we still looking for
Bro,
someone better than him? Could we use him as a mate weight in a deal potentially for someone like Elise?
bro, Noni vexes me probably more than any other player in the team right now. Because I actually believe he is an unbelievable player. His talent is unbelievable. I've seen sometimes the way he moves, his speed, his feet, his finishing, his class. My issue is consistency. He goes missing in some games, and his attitude, I think, at times has been questionable. Look, we all have seen and watched the penalty saga, which was just absurd. I think, look, I don't want to keep bringing it up, and he wasn't the only one. Cole
Yeah.
Palmer and Nico as
Jackson.
well were involved. So I'm not going to give him full blame for that. But it was immature, and I think there's been other times as well I've seen him get subbed off, and he kind of just looked a bit like stroppy. And I get it. Look, I get it. You want to play, but this is a team game and it's a team sport, and that's what lets himself down, I think, for me. But in terms of talent, I think he's well up there. It just needs to be a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I hear you on that as well. I think Noni has potential to go right to the top. I really do. I think at times he's been absolutely exceptional. I feel like in one-on-ones, taking on a player, sort of facing up against defenders, he causes people a lot of problems, and he's been a little bit more efficient this year than I think he has been in the last year. Injury-wise, he's obviously managed to stay fit a little bit more this season as well. I think him and Jackson really learn from that penalty situation, because the attitude I've seen from both of them since has been like from me, I've been full of praise for him, because I think I've seen a real turnaround there. I think they really did focus on themselves and only themselves. And I think ultimately since that game, I think that was against Everton, we've really seen this sort of squad of individual players become a team, and that we've seen that with the results. So I agree. I think Noni for me is definitely a keep. I wouldn't want to see him loaned out or sold, to be honest with you. I feel like he really could be good enough for us. It's just a matter of time. And ultimately, if he can't be the number one, I'm sure he'll be fighting to be on the pitch. So he's worth having as a sub. We've seen him be really impactful in games. Next up, we've got a man who started his Chelsea career off absolutely fantastically well in Badashine. It's obviously kind of come to a bit of a halt. The car that him and Todd Bowley were driving is crashing a little bit. What are your thoughts of him? Would you be happy to keep him, or do you think we should probably sell him and sort of try and get some money back out of that one?
I think it's too soon to sell him. I think he can stick around for a bit longer. I do agree with you. He's gone downhill a little bit, but maybe it's just with all the other business that's been going on this season. We got to cut him a bit of slack. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think he's not. It's not to the point where he's got to go yet. He stays in the team, I think.
Cool. All right, I agree. Next up, we got a guy on loan It's Angelo. He is obviously at Strasbourg. He's finishing the season injured and not playing, but he's actually won their player of the month maybe once, maybe twice. He's had a good season. Obviously, we saw a tiny bit of him in pre-season. What's your thoughts? Another loan for him, or is he good enough to sort of come back and start challenging? I know no one in England's really watched too much of him unless they've been studying French football this whole season.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's probably unfair for me to give much of an opinion on him. The only thing I would say, and I could probably say this as a bracket statement of all players in similar positions to him, not positions as in football position, as in his current status,
Yeah.
would just be that where the squad is so massive at the minute, and we're talking about more recruitment this summer, unless he's doing something amazing, which I feel like I probably would have heard about, it's probably not time for him to come back yet. So I'll let you take the call on that one, mate.
Yeah, I think another loan deal for him would be really good. I feel like his game time's going to be hindered if he comes back to Chelsea. And to be honest, with all these players that we're signing, maybe some of them are never meant to break into Chelsea's team and they're there just to make us money. And
Yeah.
he could be one of those. Like you said, he's done really well, but he's not setting the world alight enough for me to consider bringing him back and putting him into this team. I think if he was good enough, he would have stuck around in the summer, to be honest with you. Next one up is Mudryk, who for me has been a little bit underwhelming this season at times. Sometimes he's looked really good. I feel like it's been inconsistent, though. We've never really seen him get back to that level we saw in his debut, have we?
Nah, never, mate. Never. Mudryk, it's a tough one for me because I think for time I was like, this guy just needs a bit more time, he needs a bit more time, he needs a bit more game time. But I really am getting to a point where I'm struggling to see if he's worth what I thought he was going to be. And I know there's still a lot of people out there that say you've got to give this lad time and he's going to be unbelievable. And maybe that's true. I don't know. Who really knows that? I'm going to go out there and say I think Mudryk needs to go on loan, mate.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. And a lot of people won't like me saying that either. But I just feel like Mudryk needs to go somewhere where he feels really appreciated. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Matson, a little bit of even Sancho. They've gone out to and even like a Hudson-Odoi. Mudryk's probably getting more game time than all of them had at the club they were at. But I feel like if they go somewhere and they feel really appreciated, there's a little bit of pressure removed, they can just get on with playing football and make something happen. They can
Yeah.
kind of reap the rewards. And I feel like Mudryk's one of those right now where, let's be real, it's not really worked out for him at Chelsea. We're all sort of waiting for him to become that player that we saw in that Liverpool game. I'd
And I
be
think you're
happy if
right. I
he
think
went
that
on.
pressure is what's pulling him back a little bit. And like you said, if he went somewhere where that wasn't hanging over his shoulders all the time, does he become a bit more natural and free? Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
I think he's got everything you want in a winger as well, by the way. I just don't think it's clicking at the moment. And the minute it clicks, I think he could be one of the best wingers around. But we're
Yeah.
all waiting for that moment. So maybe a loan deal kind of speeds that up. I definitely wouldn't be selling him, though. I think he's definitely an asset potentially. But we could do better in that position, especially if that's where Nkunku's going to play. There's goals to be got from that position if he's there. Next up, a player who spent a lot of time on the injury list as well is Carney Chukwuemeka.
Oh yeah, Cons.
Honestly, you're
I'd
going
love
to
to keep
go
him.
through this list and you're going to find more and more and more players. You go, oh, yeah, he played for us a little bit this season.
Yeah, mate. I love what I've seen from him. It's the fitness thing again. I think a lot of people are going to fall into this. If he's fit, I would keep him 100%, no question about it. Um, and I know, he came on the other day, didn't he? I think for like 2 minutes or something silly like that. But if he's getting to a point where he's over this injury now, for me, I think he's going in the keep. It's not even a loan situation for me. I think he's good enough to be in the team. He just needs to stay fit enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a keep. I don't really want to see him loaned out because I agree with you. When he's fit, he's worth having. Matson, he's obviously on loan at Dortmund at the moment. He's got a Champions League final to play, which is crazy considering the beginning of the season he could barely get a minute under Pochettino. He's obviously a left back, but for me, when I saw him in a Chelsea shirt, I just never really saw enough from him. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I think we were there at Newcastle, weren't we? And he came on and it was just nothing. But I'd seen that over and over again from him, and I don't know what's happened. He's gone over there, and again, maybe it's like the Mudryk situation. He's gone over there, a little less pressure, although he didn't have a humongous price tag on him. So I don't know. You call this one.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to see him sold. We've got to raise some funds from somewhere. There's rumour that it could go for 35 million, which is
Yeah,
pretty
you'd take that,
decent if
wouldn't
you
you?
think about it. I think I
Yeah.
would because I think, you know what, there's nothing wrong with not working in the Premier League. He's obviously a good player. And if his career happens to be in Germany or on the continent somewhere, why not just make sure you have one rather than trying to fight back to get into the Chelsea team? I'm happy to sort of let that one pass, or I kind of go, you know what, he could have been amazing for us, but it just wasn't really working.
Yeah.
Reece James.
Yeah, good choice for that one.
Reece James, we all know how good Reece can be, but is it getting to the point with his injuries that we potentially cash in on him and get a huge fee from maybe like Real Madrid or something? What do you think?
Uh, there's definite potential for that to happen. I don't think it's yet. For me, he's got to stay. Reece James is still Reece James. He's still unbelievable. I know he's struggled with injuries, but he had that surgery, didn't he? Which I think was kind of a plan to really just get rid of the recurring problem. He came on the other day and got that silly red card, which is disappointing in him. He needs to work on something over the summer, maybe, I don't know, in terms of getting back to where he was. But he's Chelsea blood. He's unbelievable. Like, for me, he's the best right back in the world when he's fit.
Yeah, I
Like, from
agree
what
with
we've
you.
seen.
Yeah, 100%. I think we saw that against Forest. Silly discipline. I think that really needs to be coached out of quite a few players in this team. Poch needs to come down a little bit harder, to be honest with you. I feel like the only thing I'd say with Reece is actually how can you be a captain when you're not fit and you're suspended half the time you've actually been available this season? I think that's the biggest issue I'd have there. But when he is fit and he is performing, you can see why he's captain. I think it would be ludicrous for Chelsea to consider selling him without giving him much time after this surgery. We let him try and get fit so many times it didn't work, and we finally given him surgery. It'd be crazy to sell him. We've got a couple of players coming up that I would consider are pretty much on the fringe. So we'll run through them pretty quickly because I think we can focus on some of the bigger names that are most likely to go. But we've got Andre Santos.
We should do like a quick fire session, mate. Just bam, 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 bam.
Go on, right. Let's do at least the next four that I can see. We'll try and get out of the way, and then we're coming up to Nkunku. So we got Andre Santos. You go one word. Cool. Lavia, yet to barely play for Chelsea, bar one game.
You call it.
I'm going to say we keep because the stuff I'm hearing about him is exceptional. I just want to see it in a Chelsea shirt. Obviously, if he don't play next season, we just let him go. To be honest with you, Diego Moreira played a little bit in pre-season. He's been on loan in France, then got recalled. He's been in the youth team. Sell. I kind of agree. I'm not sure he's going to be up to Chelsea's level at the moment. Casaday obviously got recalled from Leicester halfway through the season. I know you watch quite a lot of Championship football. Where are you with him?
This for me is more than a one-word answer because I'm annoyed about this because I think he was playing unbelievable, and then we brought him back, and now I'm frustrated because I feel like he's just going to go on loan again. I think the recall was just due to the injury issue, and I think that actually the most sensible thing for him to do is to go back on loan again. Let him have a full season or however long he needs next year, and then hopefully he'll get into the team. Because I think there's going to be other players coming back that for me are well ahead of him, so he's got to go on loan again.
Yeah, I agree. I think we kind of disrupted Casaday's season a little bit. I don't really think that worked out too well. Dan Knight says, Chilwell, would you sell him? We did touch on Chilwell a little bit. We decided that we'd keep him, but he's really got to sort out his injury issues that we've seen. Next up, obviously, Nkunku. I think we're both pretty much set on keeping him, to be honest. I don't think that needs too much of a discussion. In fact, I'd put him right up the top because I feel like he's going to be really important for us. If he can stay fit, I think he'll be massive for goal involvements next season. He looked lethal in the Brighton game.
Yeah, mate, completely agree. Couldn't have said about
it. Right. We got Wesley Fofana, a player who we all know could be amazing, but has barely played again for Chelsea. It's crazy how many of these players we're talking about injury records, but yet again, another one. Do we hold on and just keep trying to get him to play for Chelsea, or do we try and just get some sort of money for him and move him on? We can't hold on to all these injured players.
No. I think Wes is He has to stay, and I think it's because of the Reece James similar situation where we've waited so long for him to be fit. It would be ludicrous for us to sell him now. Not only that, we paid what 80 million, I think, for him, 60. I can't remember which one it was. We ain't gonna get
Yeah, around
close
that.
to that if he's not played for 2 years or however long it's been. I know I think he played some pre-season, or was it even the beginning of the season? He played a game or something. I can't remember. But I've never been completely sold on him, but people are telling me otherwise. So for me, he's got to stay. If he doesn't cut it, or if this injuries are still an issue next year, he goes. Even January, he goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like we said already on quite a few, is get rid of the injuries, actually get playing for the club, and we can really sort of judge. If you're not playing for the club, you're not worth keeping around as well. People in the chat as well, make sure to smash the likes. We're trying to get up to 20 likes on this one as well. Let us know your thoughts and if you agree with who we should keep and who we should sell. Next up, we've got Cole Palmer. Now, it probably seems certain that we should keep him, right? If an offer comes in for over 120 million, would you debate it, Eyes, or are you just fully in the camp of he's priceless for this club at the moment?
Nah, look. I can't speak for the ownership, and from what I've seen from them, I would question whether or not they would do that. But me, he stays. He's been our
You're right.
best player. He's been the best player of the season this year, hands down, not even a
By an
question.
absolute mile, by the way. And he's just won Young Player of the Season for the Premier League. What a
I would
player.
go as
Honestly,
far
what a
as
player.
saying, if we didn't have Cole Palmer this season, I think we'd be 10 places lower. Maybe, I reckon we'd be between 13th and 16th in the league. I
I hear that.
genuinely believe that.
I think there would have been a point when people would have been speaking about Chelsea in a relegation battle
Yeah.
if we didn't have Cole Palmer, which is kind of crazy to think. But like, he was putting us through games, and there's been multiple games where this guy's scored like 3 or 4 goals. So an exceptional
Palmer
talent.
again, ole, ole.
Ole,
Palmer again, ole,
ole.
ole. Palmer again.
But
Palmer
I hear
again.
you, by the way.
Palmer
We
again, ole, ole.
cannot speak for the ownership, and I'm worried how like they could be tested. That's what I'm worried about. This one's one of the biggest ones coming up. Conor
Go on.
Gallagher. Obviously, massive rumours today that tomorrow's going to be his last game for Chelsea. I'm gutted about that if that is to be the case. I know what I'd be saying. What about you?
I think you know where I'm saying on this, Dan. We've spoken
Yeah.
about this plenty of times this season. In fact, yes. I think you've done what I just think. He for me is the biggest keep. If
Yes, I
Conor
agree.
Gallagher gets sold this summer, I will have to seriously consider not I'm not going to go down the line of saying I'm not going to support Chelsea, but I would really have to consider Chelsea as a football club and what their real intentions are as to how I continue to support them as a fan, because it just shows me that this club are nothing like what I'm about and what I believe 99% of Chelsea fans are about. So then there's a big question mark there. So
Yeah.
he has to stay.
Yeah, look, we got the banner made, and there were people saying, oh, why does he deserve the banner? But the people that were saying that don't really get Chelsea, to be honest with you. I think Conor Gallagher embodies everything that we sort of want to see in someone who's coming through the academy, that's supported Chelsea. He's got that John Terry element about him. He's given his all in every single game. I think he's been a good captain this season. I think he's matured an awful lot. Poch has definitely improved him. Poch likes him as a player. If you're going to back your manager, this is the type of player I want to be keeping around. And look, for me, I don't think Chelsea go out and replace a player like Conor Gallagher for 50 million. He's put up some good numbers this season as well. And I'll be honest, I don't think 50 million is worth it for him, because you're never going to get a player that loves the club as much as him. He's been so versatile this season. He gives his all. He's obviously good in the dressing room. He's good for training. I think this would really show, and this is exactly what you're saying, is where the club is moving, the direction they're going, what this board sees the club as and as a business, and where the fans are. And I think Conor Gallagher going, I think that starts a void for me, to be honest with you. I think that really could split the fan base, because I think even if Connor's not playing every week, and we know he's not always good enough and always the man to make the difference like a Cole Palmer, but if we get Europe next season, he's the type of player that we absolutely need, because he's going to be fit nearly every single game. How many players can you say that about Chelsea? We've listed half of them, and they haven't been fit. So I agree. He is, for me, the player that should be staying at Chelsea without a doubt. That's why I've put him right at the front. Another couple of quick fire ones. We got David Washington. He spent most of the season on the bench and doing all right in our youth teams. What's your thoughts on him?
Now,
You'd sell him? You wouldn't loan him and give him a chance?
I don't think he's, and I know he's barely played, so it's not his fault. I'm just going off numbers, mate. I think the numbers we've got in this team, if he was anything, I feel like if he'd shown any real potential this season, we'd have seen it.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I feel like Poch would have given him more of a chance if he was seeing it in training and stuff like that as well.
Mate, he's on the bench for me because of the injury situation, and it's as simple as that. And if he's not, he's just another academy player, and I think he's probably a good one. I'm not going to fault him on his abilities or anything like that. But for me, in the aim to clear up numbers, I'm going to sell.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Get a bit of money for him. You might get a bit of money for him because he's been on Chelsea's bench this season. Do you know what I mean? Clubs will pay more just because he made it to the bench.
Exactly. Yeah, you're completely right. I feel like for me, I could sort of sit between a loan and a sell, but I haven't seen enough from him to consider keeping him around the first team, to be honest. A player that we've seen a little bit of, but kind of disappeared after that first half that Graham Potter had him was Fofana. He's been on loan at Burnley, had a couple of good games, and it's been quiet again. Obviously, a striker that would probably... Yeah, he's been all right. So, I mean, what do you think with him? Is he worth bringing back to be a backup, or do we loan him out again, sell him? Could be worth some money now he performed at Burnley.
Could be, yeah. I think that's a tough one, actually. I think for me, it's a loan. I don't think he's ready to come back yet. I think there's still talk about us buying another striker. And if we buy another striker, where does he even... do you know what I mean? Where does he... how far down the pecking order have you got to be? He might as well send him out on loan to someone like Burnley again, bag a couple of goals, and maybe he'll be ready then.
Yeah, I kind of...
I'm not willing to give up on him yet.
No, I hear that. I've seen more from him than I have of Washington, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We've got Petrovic.
Keep.
Yeah, I agree. One word answer for me. He's done a really good job. You can probably do better, but absolutely keep. Enzo Fernandez.
Keep.
Yeah, agree with you on that one as well. Right, another
I say
player.
that quickly. I just want to clear up that wasn't a quick leap because of his unbelievable performances. He's had some good performances this season, but he still needs to do better. But I think as a player, he's got to stay. Yeah, keep. Go on, mate. Next one.
Yeah. Cool. I agree with you on that one completely. I need to see a little bit more from him. I feel like this injury/operation hernia thing might have been holding him back a little bit. Amari Hutchinson, another one for debate because he's been so good in the Championship this year. They're saying he arguably helped Ipswich get promoted. Do we sell him and cash in now, or is he good enough for our first team?
I think I'd bring him back, mate. I know you know Amari, but you've known, in your coaching world for a number of years, and you've always said how standout of a player he is, and I think there's a reason for that, mate. And I think he's probably... Look, you could argue that he could maybe do one more season on loan and he would come back phenomenal, but then the issue you've got with that is if we're not in a position at that stage where he may look elsewhere and we could miss out then. Whereas if we bring him back, give him a chance, a bit like we kind of did with Cole Palmer, not that he was ours, but we brought him in, gave him a bit of a chance, and look how well he's done.
Yeah, I think Amari could really thrive. I just feel like this might be taken out of our hands. And if an offer comes in from Ipswich or someone for pretty good money, I think the board might sell because it could be like 20 million clear profit pretty much. A player that's played a little bit, but injuries again, really young still, Agachukwu.
I think keep. I've seen some decent things from him.
Yeah,
whenever he's come back from injuries, he's played. And... we've seen so many players this season sit on the bench week after week after week after week, and they'd be lucky to get 45 seconds between 3 or 4 of them. But somehow, whenever he comes back from injury, he still gets a good 10 or 15 minutes. So there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, I think Pochettino likes him, and for me, we're lacking a bit of height in that midfield, and he definitely adds height. He's a real tall player, and he's been very mobile. I just think he's obviously struggled with injuries as well. Malo Gusto. I think that one's pretty simple for us. Don't you agree?
Keep.
He's been so good this season that we've basically not missed Reece James, if that makes sense.
Which
Like
I
I
never
think,
thought would happen.
yeah, he's been that good, and I think when Reece comes back, you see how good Reece is. But Malo Gusto has been the way better than I thought he was going to be. To be honest with you, I think he's been so good, playing way ahead of his years. Absolutely wouldn't want to see him leave. Cucurella.
Keep.
What can we just say? I'm not going to put in the most important, but I think he's really high up on that list for me. What a turnaround. What a difference compared to last season. And this is the sort of player that reminds me to have a little bit of patience in
Yeah.
what's going on at the club, right? Because beginning of the season, I couldn't wait for him to leave. And I was too impatient. He's been so good. And in recent weeks, a revelation in this new role as well. Bettinelli obviously kind of sits on the bench as a third choice keeper, doesn't ever
Hey, do you
moan,
know
goes
what?
for coffees all the time.
Yeah. And for someone who plays such little football, if any, this guy is always in and around the players, the club. He obviously must have a huge influence on some of these youngsters, and yeah, he seems like a pretty down to earth guy as well. So I think keep him in.
Yeah, Jacob seems pretty happy with keeping Bettinelli around as well. So,
Or was that for
um,
Kooks?
it might have been for Kooks. It might have been for Kooks, actually, considering he did say something about Cucurella a little bit earlier on. Okay, Casado. Obviously, we bought for so much money. People are saying flop of the season. I'm not going to say keep, buy, or sell because I think we're pretty sold on this. But would you say he's flopped this season, or do you think he's actually been all right and kind of gone under the radar?
I think the word flop is unfair. I can see why people would have that opinion of him. He's not. Look, he came in on a huge price tag. He don't pick his own price tag, right? The club pick it. And I'm not saying that it's not his fault or anything like that, and that doesn't mean there's an expectation because there is. But I think he's tried and he's given it. There was some times at the beginning of the season where he was a bit reckless, and I was like, "What are you doing? Silly things like that for picking up bookings and giving away stupid passes." But I think as the season's gone on, I've definitely seen a huge improvement of him. I wouldn't say he's been a flop. Would you say he's £100 million and then people compare him to players like Declan Rice and stuff? Okay, you can complain about the price tag all you want, but he doesn't put it on himself. The club put it there. So we've bought him. I think he's done all right. I'd want to see more from him, 100%. But just going off of what your last remarks were about Cucurella, mate, like maybe we just need to give this lad a bit more time as well.
Yeah, I agree. Look, we've seen him improve in this season alone, and I think people forget he didn't get a pre-season. So I would say post Enzo Fernandez being out of the team as well, he's been exceptional. So absolutely, I want to see more of him next season. Nico Jackson, obviously, I think that's a keep. He's definitely improved. We called it, should I say, months ago. Go and check out the TikTok. It's there in front of your eyes. We both sat down after the Newcastle game, was it?
It was, yeah.
It was a
The
Newcastle game.
Newcastle League game.
Yes, you're right. And we thought Jackson had a really good game, and we were starting to see a turnaround in the type of play that we'd seen start the season to now. And look, mate, to be honest with you, Jackson's going to finish on 15 Premier League goals if he scores tomorrow. Would you replace him, or would you back him for next season and sign a backup for him?
Mate, if someone said to you at the beginning of the season, hey, you just signed that Nicholas Jackson, he'll score you 15 goals this season, you'd be like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
But because his issue is he scored 15 or 14 or whatever it is, but he's probably also missed about 50% more, 7 or 8 big chances, which could have turned certain results around as well, which maybe would have pushed us a little bit higher up the table. And that's the issue. But still scored 15 goals. No, I wouldn't sell him. I'd keep him. And if he ends up being a backup, then what a great backup to have.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. I think there's potential in there to turn 15 goals into sort of 20, 25 if you really work hard on him in training and sort of turn him into a lethal finisher. I really do, because he's easily missed 10 chances that he could have scored.
Yeah.
Sterling.
Keep.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sterling's been really unfairly treated. I think because of the money that he's on, I think people just lose patience with him. But for me, I think he's better than Mudryk. I really do. I think Sterling's the type of player that when the team's playing well, he's well worth having in. And right now, when we've been playing well, he's not really been given a chance due to injury or sickness. I'm not really sure what
Mate,
that is.
if you'd asked me about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I'd have said go. But I don't know what it is. I think when he got dropped, I've seen a lot of patience in him since that game where he was, he missed a penalty and that free kick and he got dropped and he's not been back since. I think he's played, a few performances like come on as a sub, but he's not started. And I don't know, I've seen a different side to him. I think I've seen more of a mature person there, and I think with the young squad that we've got, it wouldn't harm to just have a bit more maturity floating about, even if it doesn't mean he's playing every single week.
Yeah, I feel like Sterling's going to be a controversial one in the chat. So if you're in the chat or you're in the comments afterwards, make sure to let us know what would you choose with Sterling. I think a lot of Chelsea fans would opt to sell him, but I'd like to see him stay. I'd want to see one more season, to be honest with you, and then really sort of see where he's at. He's not even 30 yet. He absolutely deserves another season at Chelsea for me. I know people don't like him because of how much money he's on. I think that's unjustified, to be honest with you. I always liked him for England. I always liked him for Man City. And I was over the moon when we signed him for Chelsea. And I think there's been spells that, don't forget, he was banging in free kicks at the beginning of the season. He got a even in the games where he's been woeful, he doesn't give up. And I like that attitude. Guys, smash the likes on the video as well. Make sure to check out Isaac's links in the description down below as well. And follow him and subscribe to all his socials if you haven't already. We've got Robert Sanchez, a guy that was bought in only this summer. For me, I definitely move him down towards the sell position. What about you?
Yeah, I agree, mate. Get rid of him. Get some money back.
I think he's been woeful. I completely hear that. This one's a controversial one. Obviously, still on the books. Romelu Lukaku. Do you give him another chance under Poch, or do we just get rid of him?
I think I'm probably the only person in the world who thinks this, but I would say keep. I genuinely think he's not worked with Poch. Look, maybe Poch would have brought him back if he wanted to. My only thing about him is that I don't think he wants to come anywhere near Chelsea ever again. So I might want it, the club might want it, the fans might want it. I don't think he wants to come back, and that's the biggest issue. But I think we paid so much money for him to come back. All right, he wasn't the best when he had that first season. Went off. There was that whole YouTube thing and that interview that he had, which didn't really help. But I just think he's still got ability. We paid a big number for him. I would just drag his ass back to Cobham and say, get fit, mate, get training, because you're playing next season.
I kind of agree. Unless a massive offer comes on the table from Saudi Arabia, no one in Italy is going to pay it. They're going to keep loaning him until his contract expires. I think he's everything we've been looking for in a striker. He's gone to Roma. He's delivering again. I bet he has a good Euros for Belgium. I'll tell you what, if he has a good Euros for Belgium, it might help us sell him. But it also might be Todd Boehly sits down and goes, look, this isn't the Chelsea that bought you. This is a new Chelsea. You're everything we're looking for. Come back here, fix it, because Poch wants you as well. I think Poch would back it. I think Pochettino, if you ask Poch who he'd sign, I bet Lukaku would be high up on that list. Yeah. I just think the fans is where it would be a little bit so-so for me. But look, fans are fickle.
If he came back and started scoring goals.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if he came back and started scoring goals, all of a sudden the fans would be back with him again.
I'm going to keep him right at the bottom of that list, but I hear you on that. I think if you had him and Jackson and Nkunku, that's some front line. I just think if Lukaku came out and said he was sorry and proved us by scoring 20 goals, I think we'd all forgive him. I really do.
100%.
I think that. Now we're getting right into the depths of this squad. There's a couple of players here I'm just going to skip straight through. I'm not even going to read them out because I'll be honest, I don't even recognise them. Look, there's no names. We've got Alex Matos. He's played a little bit. I think he's been out on loan. For me, I'd say he just gets another loan. I don't know what you think. You've seen much of him.
I did see quite a bit of him actually in pre-season last year, and he was a standout for me. So he doesn't sell yet. He goes back on loan.
Cool. Trevor Chalobah, obviously a controversial one, could potentially be sold this summer. I think he's been fantastic since he come back. Would you sell him?
Yeah. No, I'd keep him.
I'd keep Trevor as well. I think he's everything we're looking for in a centre back. I know this club want clear profit, but for me, I don't think it's worth it. A couple of others, and then I think we'll wrap it up. We've got Hakim Ziyech.
Ooh, sell.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he might stay in Turkey. I think he's been quite happy there. We've got...
And I think we'll get a bit of money from him as well.
I think you're right, mate. Unless the contract gets voided, I think he's really just never really worked at Chelsea, has he? Malang Sarr is still on the books. I don't know if we could sell him. I don't think anyone would pay, but we could rip up the contract because what is the point in keeping him around? We've got a couple here. I'm just trying to see if I recognise any of them. I would say I recognise Tino Anjurin. I know we watched him make his debut for Chelsea. Are we just kind of giving up on him now? It's been
I'd
a
probably
long
loan him,
time.
to be fair.
He's been on a lot of loans. He spent a bit of time
Has
in
he?
Russia, a little bit of time in the Championship. I always wanted to see more from him, but I just don't think it's really happening. I think he might have struggled with a few injuries.
Yeah, get rid of him then, mate. Let's get some money back from him.
Yeah. And the last one I'll say is Slanina. He's one of the backup goalkeepers that we've obviously got potentially coming back from the MLS. Is it worth bringing him in if we get rid of Sanchez, or do you think this is the type of guy that we just sort of sell on and just make a little bit of money out of?
Probably the latter, yeah. I mean, I would say with Petrovic and Betts, there's got to be someone else out there that we can go and nab as another sort of backup keeper. I'm instantly going. I know people laugh at me when I say this, but we have to start looking at Aaron Ramsdale being an option. I know you're not his biggest fan, and he's come out and said that thing about his concentration levels, but yeah, all right, he's had some issues in the past, but before Arsenal signed Raya, he was a quality keeper, mate.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think he had some good spells. I think I'd probably rather Pickford than him, but even then, I feel like
Yeah.
we'd sort of be jumping the gun. I think Petrovic has done all right, and I feel like is it worth waiting another season to just see where Chelsea are as a club? But it's also like, could we fight for Champions League football with just Petrovic in goal?
Just
I'm not
yeah.
entirely sure. Imagine coming up against some of the real top teams. I'm sure he'd absolutely struggle. Crack agrees with you and says Ramsdale is better than Raya. Iz, I don't know if you want to comment on any of these. I'll read out some if I recognise them, but I probably don't, to be honest. It might not even be worth it. Bashir Humphreys has played for Chelsea this season.
Yeah.
Would you keep him, or is that worth another loan deal?
Probably not clear enough to say, yeah. It's got to be a loan, isn't it?
Yeah. And Leo Castledine has made a couple of appearances as well, as far as I believe. Is that a player you'd be keeping, or is that another loan deal as well, or do you even sell him?
It'd have to be a loan for me. I think, yeah, none of them really in the keep section. I want to see some of these injured players coming back, and I don't want to look at my bench and be like, who's that, who's that, who's that. So for me, these youngsters, they can make their own decisions. They either go out on loan or they someone else. If someone wants to pay decent money for one of them, then let's get a bit of money. But I'm not too concerned that we're going to sell any, and then in 2 years' time we're going to be like, oh my god, we sold that player, we should have kept him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's anyone really that I'm seeing that kind of strikes me as a Kevin De Bruyne or a Salah Sale. I don't think anyone is really on that level. If they are, look, I'll take it, because right now it's just not what this squad needs. We've kept 23 players there, so that gives us a little bit of wiggle room to try and buy a couple of players. I don't think we've missed anyone. I'm pretty sure that tier list was all right. If we have, then let us know. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We've had a little bit of fun doing that. We've been waiting to do that for ages, because our heads, we just need to clear Chelsea out and just work out who's available, who's fit to play. Make sure to subscribe to Isaac. Make sure to check him out on all his socials as well. He's definitely going to start the pre-season strongly with all of that sort of stuff as well. We've got a channel launching called the 1905, which is going to be Chelsea content. So if you haven't already, make sure to check that out and subscribe. We've been live on there today. And make sure to like the video. If we can get 20 likes, that would be unreal. Let us know your thoughts. Would you keep, buy, or sell on these players? And subscribe, because we've nearly got 2,500 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. And I will catch you post the Bournemouth game to see if Chelsea have got European football next season. I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Dan.